safe, and effective. They keep telling us that they've saved millions of lives and that the science is settled. But what if they've been lying all along? Welcome to Beyond the Job, the show Big Pharma does not want you to see. I'm your host, Nico Lagan, and today I'm joined by wife, mother of two, and holistically minded certified physician assistant, Katie Collins, aka Katie the PA. How are you doing today? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me and my son for now. This is Wyatt also. Yeah,
Love it.
this is what it's like podcasting, being a stay-at-home mom as well.
Like we were saying just before we started recording, I have a 4.5 months old. If it wasn't for the fact that I worked 20 years in technology and I know how easy it is to obtain children's faces online,
Yeah.
my son, I would record with my son too because he's very cute. But
Yeah.
no bias, no bias at all. I'm not biased whatsoever. But I, I I wish I did it, but I just can't. I just can't do it. I just
Yeah.
can't bring myself to do it. So like I was saying, thank you for joining us. This is the first episode of a series of podcasts that I want to do on the myth, the lies, the the good, the bad, the ugly, the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to vaccination, especially when we're talking about pregnant women or expecting parents or new
Yes.
parents like I am right now. It's our first one. And you don't really know what to expect until you go through it.
Mm-hmm.
And we were, we spent half of our time in the US. So over the past 4 years, we spent 6 months, 6 months. We normally spend our winters down there. And we're down south. So Texas, Alabama, Arizona, we're not in northern states.
Yeah.
And we have a midwife down in Alabama. Everything we found out, my wife was pregnant when we were down there. Everything's cool. We have her. We see her every 2-3 weeks. Everything's good. Everything's perfect. No mention of vaccination. It's all about diet. It's all about how you sleeping, how you feeling, are you stressed? All the stuff you would expect
Yeah.
doctors to ask. And then we come back to Canada after 6 months and we meet our doctor for the first time that is assigned by the state. She spent basically her whole meeting talking to us about vaccination, about wanting her to take the COVID vaccine, wanted her to take what was it, hepatitis B. She wanted her. There was 4 vaccines. There were 3 or 4 vaccines that she wanted her to take as she was still pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
She asked about us providing the umbilical cord. She was asking us so many things. Oh, can we keep the placenta? As in the doctor take the placenta and not
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
She didn't really ask about how she felt, her stress level, how's her diet, are you still able to exercise?
Yeah.
Is that a story that you hear all the time?
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, I'm really glad that the care that you received at first when you were in Alabama was really, it seemed holistically minded,
Yeah.
talking a lot about nutrition and exercise. I mean, those are the things that are so important when you are pregnant. Like, I mean, when you are trying to grow the most beautiful baby, what matters most is what you eat and how you move and your environmental toxin load. I mean, there's so many things that go into growing a healthy baby. And first and foremost, it's diet and exercise. So I'm really happy to hear that you at least got a good experience at first. Unfortunately, though, with most traditional OBs, that is a pretty common story where they basically talk about the interventions we are going to do during your pregnancy and during labor and delivery, and then afterward, right? Vaccinations is only one aspect of that in terms of what the interventions that we do in pregnancy. You have extra ultrasounds, you have genetic testing, you have all of these things in the name of preventing anything bad happening to your child. But I think what OBs typically don't they're either not taught this or they kind of brush over the potential risks of vaccination as well as risks of something like ultrasounds and multiple rounds of genetic testing. I mean, I honestly think OBs only know one side of the story, and they either choose to not tell you the other, or they don't know the other side in terms of the risks.
And that's the I tend to overestimate people, not to underestimate them. I
Yeah.
expect you as a doctor that has at least 4 years of university, or not five, if not more, if you're specialized, to do the research. If I'm able to do that research, so are you. It's not an
Right.
excuse that you weren't taught about the other side of the vaccination process, like what actually happens. Are they really safe and effective?
Right.
Is the science really settled? As idiotic as this sounds, the science will never be settled. That's the whole point of
No.
science, is that it never
Yeah.
stops evolving. Science is proving yourself wrong. That's the point
Yeah.
of science. If you don't do that, you are not doing science right now. And
Hmm.
you were asking Hep B. So right now in Canada, it is promoted for women to get the influenza vaccine, the Tdap, which is the tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis. So it's 3-in-1 vaccine. They recommend the COVID-19 vaccine. They recommend the RSV, and they recommend Hep B as you're pregnant. That's 5. Plus,
Yeah.
there's 3-in-1 in there. So technically it's 7, not
Yeah.
5. But
7
those are what,
antigens. Hmm.
they actually suggest pregnant women get
Yeah.
before giving birth, which is absolutely insane. Try asking for the information. Give me an information paper on your vaccine, what's in there. Have you ever seen one provided by a doctor? You ask and they gave you one. Have you seen that? Have you ever seen one?
Well, they are required to have like a vaccine information statement usually in their office. Sometimes it takes a little bit more digging to actually get the package insert, which is that long, like the big long pamphlet with all of the notes on it, including the notes from the clinical trials. When we're talking about vaccines in pregnancy, I mean, well, first of all, when you're talking about vaccines in general, there are, no placebo controlled trials with any inert placebo. There are when they try to say, oh, there is a placebo, but the placebo is not something that's biologically inert where it's not going to do anything in your body. It's not saline. It's usually comparing an old vaccine, an older version of the same vaccine, or a completely different vaccine, or just the things that are included in the vaccine without the antigen. So if you think of all the ingredients that are in vaccines, things like aluminum, formaldehyde, bovine serum protein, monkey kidney cells, aborted fetal cell line DNA fragments, sucrose, polysorbate 80. I mean, all of these compounds are in this solution, and that is given to the control group. I mean, the common argument for not having a placebo controlled trial for these vaccines is that it's not ethical to withhold a life saving treatment, or a protocol that, in the terms of vaccines. And if you're comparing a new vaccine to an old one, I mean, you can sure, throw them a bone there. But if you have a new vaccine and you are creating a new vaccine and using a control group that is getting a vial of solution with only the ingredients in the vaccine without the antigen, I mean, what is ethical about that? That to me is completely unethical. And when you go on then to think about pregnancy, they have clinical trials for vaccines, in adults or children or whoever they're on. But for especially the flu vaccine, there are no clinical trials at all pre licensure for pregnant women. So there's not even any safety baseline for pregnant women at all. It's all post licensure. And that is not the gold standard way to evaluate vaccine safety.
Yeah, they don't do any double blind studies, as the technical term for it. And that to me is absolutely insane. How is that possible that they can declare something to be safe and effective if they never use the gold standard of testing, which is
Right.
double blind studies? Compare saline to the vaccine. Nothing
Yeah.
else, nothing more than saline. But let me ask you this. Let's go conspiracy theory for a second there. Do you think that's the
Ooh, fun.
reason why? Yeah, I have a little I have a little tinfoil hat on a skeleton right there, just because
Yeah.
that is what I am. But do you think it's done on purpose because it would be too easy to show that it does have major side effects compared to saline, compared to a real double blind study? Is that why they don't do it, at least in your opinion?
It it's all, you're trying to determine intent, right? And I
Yeah.
think I think the focus is money. That's
Mhm.
the biggest focus. So what is going to prevent them from getting money if there's any doubt in the vaccine program? And so they justify their methods by saying that, they have arguments for each thing that they do, whether they be good or not. But I mean, they have that. Honestly, to me, I don't think there really was a plan. Like, I don't think there's this overarching plan of like, let's just make everybody ill so that we can make millions of dollars. I think they stumbled upon something that they realized could make them money, and they are desperate to keep it safe. So they safe in no doubts in terms of this program. So do I think they're purposely trying to make people sicker? No, it's not. I'm not there yet. My husband is. I'm not there yet. But I I would say that I just think that they want their money, and any doubt in the vaccine program creates, a loss in dollars. And I think that they will justify whatever unethical way that they do their clinical trials in order to deem the vaccine safe so that they can make money. That's where I'm at.
So so without the conspiracy behind it, you still believe that there's a reason they're doing it on purpose not to test it, whatever the reason might be.
Mm.
Maybe they're protecting their sacred cow, because it is a massive sacred cow.
Yeah, yeah, I do think it is intentional. I mean, you can't look at every single clinical trial and
No,
have there not be a saline
no,
placebo for literally any one of them when
no.
it's cheaper. It's cheaper to do saline. Why would you make a vaccine without the like, it's so much money to put that together and just waste that on a control group. Like, why don't you do the saline? It's much cheaper to do it that way, yet they refuse to. And so it's almost like they are I mean, it isn't, it has to be intentional at this point that they wouldn't use saline, especially for the newer vaccines. Now, RSV and I think the newest one, like the monoclonal antibodies, they do have at least a portion of their clinical trials using a saline placebo in the monoclonal antibodies. And that's not necessarily a vaccine. That's actually different. Vaccines create active immunity while the monoclonal antibodies provide passive immunity. So it's just giving the baby the antibodies for a short period of time right there. So you have to wonder if the safety profile is different for that. If is it different in terms of creating active immunity versus passive immunity? I don't think we'll really ever know, because they're not going to do the correct safety trials in order to see if these products are actually safe.
One of the things that I've noticed that you talk about a lot is informed consent. That is something that the foundation that I work with, the Vaccine Choice Canada, is extreme. It's all about informed consent. They're not there to tell you not to do it. They're not
Hmm.
there to tell you to do it. They're
Yeah.
there to help you complete your research, to have an idea of what's actually going on. What is the real information that you should be aware of? Then you can
Hmm.
take your own decision. Is that what your goal is to really provide people with the information that is not being shared right now? Because if we look at vaccination from an honest perspective, there's no debate allowed when it comes to vaccination. We are not, there's no people that, I don't like the term anti-vax, but I guess that's what I am. That's what people like to call me, at least.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no, they don't want to allow a debate between the anti-vaxxers, the vaxxers, to try to get information out there as to what's the reality of the vaccination. Is that what you're trying to accomplish? You're ready to be the bad guy or the bad woman in order to get that information out there because you know that people need the information?
I think that informed consent is learning about the risks of the disease and the risks of the vaccines, known and unknown, right? And so I honestly, throughout my training in conventional medicine and what I've seen, just on social media, the conventional side, I call it conventional. There are plenty of conventional doctors who are questioning, vaccinations now. But when I say generally speaking, um, they only give the risks of the diseases. And if you work in an emergency room or the ICU and you're seeing the terrible effects of these diseases, that's going to be on the forefront of your mind, right? Like if you have a baby come in with meningitis due to a bacterial infection that has a vaccine that we could potentially prevent that with, then you're going to say, why wouldn't you prevent that infection? Like your baby is literally dying in front of me. I can see why there's so much emphasis on the infectious disease, but what I think is needs to be, first of all, I think we have lost and we have been so trained to fear infections, and that number one is permeating through this kind of conventional medicine where it's like you would just do anything to prevent getting sick at all when people have been getting sick with infections for thousands of years. I mean, and the argument would be like, oh, people didn't live as long as we do now. Well, there's two sides of that coin. One, they might be living less time and dying of an infectious disease, but what was their quality of life like, right? Did they live with these chronic diseases that we have today? Do they live with autoimmune issues, heart disease, cancer, all of these things that actually vaccinate or early childhood infections? There's evidence to say that some of these early childhood infections can actually prevent things like heart disease and cancer and autoimmune issues later on. And it's because as a child, our immune system is trained by these viruses and bacteria, and our immune system creates immunity over them and gets stronger so that later on these chronic diseases they don't have as much of a hold on us, right? And so I think we've been trained to fear infection. And I think the risks of vaccines have been, one, completely brushed aside and overlooked, and also completely misinterpreted. I mean, the you simply cannot determine the true safety of a medical product without a double blind placebo controlled trial. You just have to know that if you are vaccinating your child. So you have to evaluate the risk of the disease versus the risk of the vaccine that's known and unknown, right? Like we have some risks of vaccines that we know about, like Guillain-Barré syndrome or anaphylaxis. Like the CDC and the Institute of Medicine are pretty outright with a few reactions that can be caused by vaccines that they say happens in 1 in a million doses, right? There are a few reactions that they do acknowledge, but they say those are so rare, and the risk of the benefits outweigh the risks, right? Well, if you're not determining true safety, then you have all of these underlying risks that you're not thinking about or not even attributing to the vaccines in the first place. So parents need to recognize, and this is something that I try to do in my content, where it's like you have risks to infectious diseases. I don't think they're non-existent, and I think that's something the more holistic community might emphasize too much. They might say, you don't even have to worry about any of the diseases that we vaccinate for. They're totally and completely rare. Don't even worry about it. Well, these things do happen. And so parents should consider it, even if it is rare, even if there are ways to treat it, we should consider the rare case of an infectious disease that could potentially be fatal for your children. But you have to balance that with the risks that of the vaccines that are known and unknown. And that, I think, is really what I try to aim to do in my content, and just say, like, ultimately, we don't know all of the risks that come with vaccination. So you as the parent have to decide, what risks are you more comfortable taking? Are you more comfortable taking the risk of getting a potential infection, or, taking the known and unknown risk of this medical product, the vaccine?
Speaking about risk and reward, because that's what informed consent is all about, is knowing what are the potentially what are the potential reward, what are the potential risks. But the real question I have for you, would you ever suggest a pregnant woman to get the 7 vaccine, or the equivalent of the 7 vaccines that we spoke about earlier? So the influenza, the Tdap, the COVID-19, the RSV, and the Hep B. Is that something you would ever suggest a pregnant woman to even consider, even though maybe we can argue that there are benefits to this? Could you ever
Mhm.
see yourself recommend this to someone? No, not to someone, to a pregnant woman. I want to make sure here, only
Yeah.
women can get pregnant. Let's be honest here for a second, not
Yeah.
someone, but a pregnant woman. Would you ever recommend it?
You know, I am not a fan of vaccines in pregnancy, only because I don't think the safety trials really show the true safety of what could happen in pregnancy and for the baby. I also don't think they're necessarily incredibly effective, potentially, especially with the pertussis portion of the DTaP vaccine. That immunity does not last for a long time, and that's purposeful, right? And so, and there even can be some interaction between the maternal antibodies given through the Tdap vaccine with the child's future DTaP series. There's interaction there that happens, making the child's future DTaP series less effective, right? So that's something that women need to consider. In terms of would I ever recommend any of them, I truly try to just say that vaccines are to be given on an individualized basis. I'm not a fan of vaccines in pregnancy, because I don't think we truly know the unknown risks that could happen to mom and to baby. I think that immune activation during pregnancy is, well, one, I don't think it's healthy. And two, I don't think vaccine trials on pregnant women are ethical at all. I don't think it's ethical to do any sort of vaccine trial on on pregnant women, because you're risking not only the life of a pregnant woman but also her child, right? And all in the name of potentially preventing something. And if you look at the clinical trials for if you look at any safety data for pregnant women receiving vaccines, there's always a risk of premature labor, miscarriage, or death of the newborn. That is a risk with any of them. And I think if there's any risk at all of that, I wouldn't advise that at all. But again, I'm not the end all be all. I try to give the risks and benefits of each one, and let the patient make their own decision. But ultimately, if I was pregnant, or even if I was guiding a friend, I would say that I don't think any vaccines in pregnancy are worth it.
I couldn't agree with you more. This is exactly what my wife and I did.
Hmm.
We let them speak.
Yeah.
We allowed them to speak, and I shut my mouth on purpose, because I am one of those that will challenge doctors. I will challenge anybody that I know is wrong. I have no problems
Hmm.
doing it. I don't
That's
care who
great.
you are. My No,
Excuse me,
but
I'm
we
moving
knew
because my phone's
that.
dying, so I'm moving to a plug.
No worries, no worries. But I'm happy that my wife was there to be calmer, because she's not a hothead like I am. She's a lot more calculated and calm.
Yeah.
But the thing that we found very interesting in all of this is that our doctors are telling us, be careful about what you eat while you're pregnant, but don't worry about those 5/7 different vaccines. Those are okay for you, but food wise, you gotta be careful what you eat, because it could affect your baby.
That is so backwards, right? I mean, that to me, I do not see any I see no weight in that argument. Like I'm
No.
just like if I can't eat a turkey sandwich, but you want to inject aluminum into my body, you're insane. Like that to me, I'm just that is so mental. I just it's really hard for me to get behind that.
Well, this is an example I like to use just to show how I think idiotic is the best word I can think of. If I'm trying to stay polite right now because that's not the word I want to use, but it's absolutely insane. How can you look at me in the eyes and as a doctor and believe this? That
Yeah.
my wife needs to be careful about what she eats while being
Mhm.
pregnant, but she can inject aluminum
Yeah.
in her that will automatically go to our unborn child.
Yeah.
It makes zero sense. Zero sense. I don't
Yeah.
understand how somebody with common sense can look at this and say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But
Well,
the
I
average
think
individual doesn't know that, though. The
right.
average pregnant woman doesn't understand what is in those vaccines. They don't take the time to look at it. It's like the vaccine is a sacred cow. You
Yeah.
just take it. How many videos have you seen online, especially on Instagram, of fathers sitting there with their newborn and they're getting vaccinated? The baby is screaming at the top of its lung, and the father is screaming. Then you go to the comment section, and people are, oh, what a great father, what a strong. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, he is not strong. That guy's indoctrinated. That
Mhm.
guy just, his baby's reacting to this, but it's so sacred. He's hard, a big boy is crying, holding his son or daughter, yet never questions, should I be doing this?
I think that mothers especially have been kind of told to silence their intuition. Parents, moms and dads. I mean, you as a father in that situation, if you saw your child, I mean, there's the heel prick test, right? Like there's the heel prick test that all newborns do, and even that, my husband is like wanting to punch the nurse in the face, and I'm like, it's the right reaction when somebody is performing an intervention on your child. That's the right reaction, and I think parents have been told to silence that intuition, and I think now we're just now starting to realize that that intuition was correct. I don't think necessarily in the heel prick test I can see how that could be beneficial, but in terms of vaccines, like I think that the veil is kind of being torn away, and we're now seeing like, oh, I should have listened to my intuition after all, right? And I think for the majority of women that is against vaccination, right? Like just like you're saying, it feels unnatural to take a syringe to your baby in an effort to potentially prevent something. Um, Now another woman's intuition might be fear of the infection, and I think families should have the right to decide whatever they would like to do for their children in terms of what they think is best for their health. But ultimately, I do think most parents see how unnatural it is to allow this to happen to their children, and to see now all of the chronic issues that children are having. And starting to put the pieces together, I think parents are now starting to listen to their inner voice a little bit more.
It's such a great point because there's a book that was released by Vaccine Choice Canada about the sacred time. Basically, they call it from sacred to seven, the
Mhm.
sacred time of pregnancy to seven injection, basically seven different vaccines and five injections. So I absolutely love the way they call them because it used to be, pregnancy used to be seen as a godly thing. It was sacred. This
Yes,
is the number one thing that women can do that men cannot do.
right.
This is a gift by God that only women can do. And it was
Absolutely.
sacred. It was
Yeah.
absolutely sacred. And now we went from sacred to injecting or to accepting to inject our children. And as we were talking about the videos that I was referring to on Instagram, you can see the instinct of the father is
Yeah.
to not allow that, and he's hurting because he know he's hurting his child, yet he never questioned.
Yeah.
This is the part that blows my mind. As somebody
Yeah.
that questions everything, I could never do that to my child. But you mentioned the heel prick test. My son was born at 4.8 pounds, so he was born
Mhm.
very underweight. And
Yeah.
but yet he was born at 30, what was it? 36 weeks, 38 weeks. So he wasn't
Yeah. So just a touch under, but not, it should, he should
but
probably shouldn't have been that tiny.
he came on his own, like he was not induced. He just
Yeah. He
the
just came a
it
little
just
early,
he was ready to go.
ready
Yes.
to come out. Yeah. They do that
Yeah, he was
sometimes.
ready to rock. Yeah, he was ready to rock and roll. But he
Yeah.
was 4.8 pounds, and anything in Canada, if the baby's under 5 pounds, they keep him in the
NICU, probably.
yeah, exactly. So he's under 24-hour surveillance.
Observation.
The
Yes.
and they were doing the heel prick every few hours because he could not produce any sugar, so his glucose level was so
Oh.
low that he
Hmm.
could not keep himself warm, so he always had to be fed, he had to be tested, and he had to be able to keep, I can't remember the exact number, but his numbers needed to be in above his
Right.
glucose
He could
numbers needed
go
to be at
hypoglycemic. Yeah.
he was in hypoglycemia
Yeah.
for days, and it took 4 days for him to be able to
Kind
regulate.
of figured
But
it out. Yeah.
I was there the whole time. Like I'd never let my son
Yeah. And
unattended.
you shouldn't
No,
honestly. And I don't know the
I don't
laws
trust them. I don't
well, I
trust
don't know
them.
the laws in Canada, but there are some hospital paperwork. When you sign the paperwork, you actually consent to the typical practices that are put in place by the hospital, and that includes vaccination. So most of the time when you are giving birth in the hospital, you actually have to sign an additional form saying that you're opting out of whatever treatment that you're, whatever vaccine that you don't want to get. You're opting out of that because if if you had left your boy there, they would have vaccinated him per hospital protocol. Like that's, and so you have to be the person saying no. And that to me, I think is such an overstep. It's such a, not an overstep, a lack of informed consent, right? Like you are just, when you are signing away to just say, hey, I just want to have my baby in the hospital. I want to be here just in case something happens, whatever intervention needs to happen, I'm allowing for that, for myself to be treated here. But you're not only signing for that, you're signing for consent of vaccination. So for the viewers, you really need to make sure, are you in a position where you can opt out of those vaccines? And for some, I mean, I have heard terrible horror stories of parents who opted out of vaccinating either for vitamin K or for, well, vitamin K is not a vaccine, giving the intervention of the vitamin K injection and opting out of the hepatitis B vaccine at birth, and they've had CPS called on them. I mean, it's truly criminal that parents are not getting true informed consent and that they are being treated as criminals for questioning a medical product. That to me, I think is, if I were to, have any sort of authority or have like any idea for like the president that I could have, I would say do not have any sort of vaccine mandates or any sort of, criminal investigation, CPS investigation for parents who question vaccination. I think that is absolutely ridiculous.
It should be an opt-in, not an opt-out.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what it should be. An opt in and not an opt out. You don't, that is not informed consent when you
No.
just give your signature. Like you have to, especially as I've been looking through these clinical trials, really diving deep. I mean, you saw before, I had probably 20 books on my shelf, all related to vaccines. I mean, you cannot just sign a sentence saying that I consent to this vaccine product without like without the full risks and benefits given. That is not informed consent.
And I can tell you that it is bad in Canada, but all our doctors knew. We were clear from the get go, from the first time we met them. We're like, we're not vaccinating those
Yeah.
children. You're not clamping the umbilical cord. You will let it go white. When we tell you it's done,
Yes.
it's going to be done. And
Yes.
you are not taking the placenta. That don't
Yeah.
belong to you. That belongs to us. You're not
Right.
taking any of those. And when I went to the hospital, so when my wife's water broke almost 24 hours before she started feeling something, before he was ready to pop out, and we went to the hospital because we're like, yeah, I think she broke her
Yeah.
water, so we'll go we'll go check. It's been a little
Yeah.
while,
You're
so
like,
let's
what's
go
going
check
on
it
here?
out. But from the get-go, we understood that my job as a man, and I'm a bigger guy, right? I'm 6'1", 235. I'm a big boy, and I'm like, my job's to protect the child no matter what. I wasn't there to take care of my wife. I was there to take care of the
Yeah.
child. My mother-in-law came, and she was helping my
Your wife.
wife.
Yeah.
I was
Well,
there to make sure the doctors, the nurses, anybody that was in there was not able to grab the child
hmm.
and take it away from the room. I did not accept them touching them without me verifying what they were doing.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. We refused all the paperwork. We had to sign extra paperwork in order to say that we refuse. We were refusing all vaccination. We're refusing the clamping. We're refusing everything. We opted out on absolutely everything. We
Yeah.
did not accept anything outside. You're going to help our baby be brought
If
into
they're
this
like,
world.
yeah, if they're like dying, right? And you have to be really clear on that. And that's so good that you and your wife had a really clear plan. Because
Oh yeah.
sometimes I think that, and it's cool that you had your mother-in-law coming, because I know for my husband, he was a fantastic advocate for me during my labor and delivery. I needed it because my OB was fully pressuring and coercing me to, she wanted to break my water. She wanted to do all these things, and I just didn't want to be touched. And so my husband was really good at being an advocate for that. But I had to teach him a lot. I had to kind of
Yep.
teach him some of the lingo and say, hey, like, this is what could happen. This is what I want. This is what could happen. This is what we want, and to have that all on the husband, he's absolutely capable, but it's also so helpful to have somebody like your mother-in-law or a doula or an additional midwife in the room, somebody who is really knowledgeable about the birth experience and process, because that makes all of the difference when you have that additional support behind you as you're refusing all of these things in the hospital, especially.
And that was the whole point of us having a midwife, is that she gave us a full plan on how do you say it, how do you do it, what's
Yeah.
going to happen, how do you deal with all those different situations that could arise. And she
Yeah.
was great. I could not recommend people enough to not only do your research on the vaccination, is it worth the risk, but also go see a professional or somebody
Yes.
that's been doing it for a long time, like a midwife, for example. If
Yeah.
if if we would have stayed in Alabama, we wouldn't have my wife wouldn't have delivered in a hospital. She would have delivered with the midwife, and we would have
Mhm.
never been to a hospital because,
At
man,
home or a birth
yeah,
center.
yeah, she has a birth center, the
Yeah.
midwife. Like
Hmm.
she has a birth center on top of her natural food store.
Oh, fun.
I had never seen that before. The first floor is her supplement store.
Yeah.
On top is her birth center. It has about 5 different rooms
I
that
love
women can
that. That's
deliver.
a
Oh yeah,
great
yeah.
idea.
She's an old school. If you saw her, it's exact what you think in your mind of what a midwife looks like. That's
Yeah.
her. And she's
I
from
love that.
Alabama, so she has that massive southern accent.
It's
She calls
great.
everybody baby. So yeah, it's
I love it. That's great.
but this is one of the best things that we've done, is to go see. We already had our mind made up way as soon as we found out that she was pregnant. We already knew we refused the COVID vaccination. We are both one of those that did not go down that path. So we
Yeah.
already knew when she got pregnant that we're not going down that path. But having somebody confirm your choices, and as you said, inform you and tell you this might happen, this is how you want
Hmm.
to deal with it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be like, in my head, When I went to the hospital, I was ready to go to jail in order to protect my child.
Yeah, that's
I
good.
did not want to go there because I don't want the government to be involved thinking we're bad parents.
Right. Yeah. You
So
don't want
there's a
any of that to
way,
happen, but you're prepared.
yes, but there's a way to deal with it in a way where you let people know what you're looking for and you're not going to
Yeah.
back down from it. But my
Yes.
wife did it naturally. Like
Yeah.
no epidural, no nothing.
That's great.
I think it lasted, I think she pushed for 3.5 hours or 4 hours
Mhm.
to a point where they had to go, with a suction cup. He was
Oh,
stuck in the
yeah.
birth canal
He was stuck.
and
Yeah.
she had been pushing and that's why he was 4.5 pounds or 4.8 pounds because my wife's a small girl. She couldn't have
Mm.
handled, she could not push a 5 pound baby out. So imagine if he was 7 or 8 pounds, it
Yeah.
wouldn't have been possible. But
Her hips
do
are
you
shaped.
help? Oh
Interesting.
yeah. But do you help mothers or expecting families on how to deal with that aspect of how to deal with doctors? Because it is not easy. You have to know your stuff. You have to be ready to say no because they are relentless.
Yeah.
They don't accept no and then it's done. It's not like sexual consent here. Let's be honest here. It's not you say no once and it's done. No, no, no.
Yeah.
You will have to say no 10 times. Like every time you meet
Yeah.
with them, it's, oh, are you doing that? Yeah, no, we're not.
Yeah.
Clearly, we're not. So, do you help
Yeah.
people? Do you help pregnant women or expecting parents kind of prepare them with that?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, it's so important, like you said, to know before you go to the hospital. I think I know a few moms who have more than a few kids now, and they said with their first child, they didn't know anything. Like they were just like, "Oh, I'm just here to have my baby, and that's what's going to happen." And they didn't prepare. They didn't have any sort of birth plan or anything. And it's so important for parents to have some knowledge of the decisions that they want to make in that moment for especially labor, but even throughout your pregnancy too. It's so important even now for moms who are not pregnant yet, to for women who are not pregnant, even if you're single, to be taking this kind of mental inventory of all of these interventions that could happen. They call it the cascade of interventions, right? If you get one intervention, it leads so easily into the next one, the next one, and the next one. And there's risks and benefits with each intervention that you have. And so it's a lot of work and it can be really overwhelming. And so I highly suggest women, even if they're not married and they're not pregnant, to no, listen to a podcast about these things. Don't let it stress you out, but at the same time know what to expect and what potentially you might do about it. Now, if you're coming in kind of later in the game where, maybe you're 30 weeks pregnant and you're just realizing like, I don't even know what I'm going to do here. I it's so important to just go through what you are thinking of what you want your birth to look like, and visualize that, and to go over different interventions or problems that could potentially happen. And you want to do that with a person who is going to give you the risks and benefits actually of interventions. You want to do that with a person like a midwife who doesn't believe that pregnancy or labor is an emergency situation. I think so many conventional OBs treat pregnancy like a disease, like you're chronically ill with a problem that we need to fix. And by fixing it, I mean get it out. Like how are we going to get it out? Are we going to use suction? Are we going to do an epidural with C-section? I mean, their only mindset is to intervene on this issue that's happening. But if you talk to somebody who's like a midwife or even a doula to help you in your hospital birth, they recognize that women have been having babies for since the beginning of time. We are created to do this, and yes, there are complications and emergencies that can happen, and it's so important to know what to do in those situations. But if you prepare in the right way, if you have the right mindset going in, and if you look at the risks and benefits of each potential intervention, you're going to go into that pregnancy and into that labor, into delivery, so much more confident, so much more at peace. And that is a massive part of giving birth. I didn't realize this with my first child, how important it is to be relaxed in labor. I mean, I went into labor with my first child like I was going to run a marathon. Like I went in like it was like, I'm going to just freaking crush it and this is going to be insane. Like it's going to be awesome. So tense, so like strong and healthy because I prepared for that and I was really active during my pregnancy, but I didn't recognize the importance of relaxing and letting the process of labor happen to me naturally. I was very tense throughout my first labor, and I think that really affected my recovery later on. And so with my second child, I actually made it more of a point to, I at that point I had prepared, I had kind of known what I was going to do throughout my pregnancy, throughout my labor, and my pregnancy was fairly uncomplicated, so I didn't have to make a ton of decisions throughout that. And so I just made it a point to really relax a little bit more and maybe do some more stretching and just kind of allow this baby to grow and try to help it in the best way possible and go through labor as relaxed as possible. And you can't go through labor being relaxed if you're being asked, "Hey, do you want to do you want to do the epidural right now? Do you want to, do these interventions here? We need to go into a C-section. The heart rate is here." You need to be prepared for all of these potential things that can come up during a natural labor and know how to respond to that confidently so that your stress hormones aren't going up and it's going to make your labor last longer.
It's one of the things that baffled me is how stressful the nurses, the doctors, and all the staff are on a woman that is already stressed. It
Yes.
it was her first pregnancy, it was her first time delivering. She had no idea what to expect. She did not want to get any epidural. She wanted to do it naturally. And all you have is people stressing her out. And
Yeah.
and one of her stressors was me being over the top and being too protective and
Yeah.
getting escorted to jail by police. So
Oh my
it is
word.
it is unfortunate that we went from really a sacred moment, and as you said, I never thought about it this way, but we went from a sacred time between mother and her newborn baby or unborn baby
Yeah.
to treating it like a disease. That is such a
Yeah.
great way to put it because that's exactly how it felt. It's like there's
Yeah.
something wrong with you and it
Yeah.
needs to be addressed, that it's not okay to just let it be. You know what?
Yeah.
He's going to show up. He's going to come. Like when he's ready, guess what? He's going to
He's
start.
gonna come.
If
That
everything
was
is
something,
okay,
I mean,
like
I
obviously
literally,
if everything is okay, I need to say this, right? I can't stress
yeah.
that enough. If everything is okay with the pregnancy, obviously if something wrong
Yes.
happens, that's not what I'm talking about. But in the vast majority of cases where everything's good, it shouldn't be as stressful. It's already stressful. The
Yeah.
staff should not be adding to the stress
Right.
of the mother. It shouldn't.
Right. Exactly, exactly. And there are complications that can happen. There are
Sure.
diagnoses that can happen in utero, and there are different ways to manage each, different diagnoses or problem that comes up. So it's not like every case is completely, foolproof. You can just go in and have your baby and be fine. But what I do think is that I think providers overdiagnose. I think they're hyperactive. They're all about preventing emergencies. So if there's any sign of anything going wrong, they instantly jump on it. And like you said, they're stressed. They're stressed by this woman coming in pain, screaming. And most of the time, they want to fix it. Like they want to be like, "Look, you're in pain. Let's do an epidural. Like, why would you do
Right.
this to yourself?" I've heard nurses say that to people, and I'm just like, I guess to me, I think that's really brushing off a lot of the risks of complications that can happen from something just as quote unquote easy as an epidural. And I think that needs to be considered much more heavily.
I agree with you. You said something, you talked about intuition earlier, and I think that's what parents need to do more, is to s- take whatever the doctors are telling you with a grain of salt, as in
Yeah.
you're allowed to question it. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to say that you want to think about it, that you need to research it further before taking a decision. You don't need to say yes to everything that they say. Yes, it
Right.
sucks. Yes, it's not easy because they are pushy. I'm telling you, I
Mhm.
just went through it over like just 5 months ago, so I know.
Yeah.
But if you say no, like even our my child's doctor, every time we see her like once a month just to make sure that everything's okay. And she's like, "Oh yeah, you guys are the ones that are not doing the vaccination, right?" But
That's
she's
how
more
rare
old
it
school.
is for her. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. She has to
No, I'm
acknowledge
telling.
it every time.
Yeah, yeah, but she's old school. I think she's probably at the end of her 60s to somewhere in her
Yeah.
70s. So she's old school. She doesn't care. She just like from the get go. We told her no. She makes it kind of. It's almost a joke. Like it's
Yeah.
almost just like, oh yeah, that's you guys. You guys are not doing the vaccines, right? But it's okay to say no, guys. For the people out there, it's okay to say no. Be ready. It's gonna be it sucks that you have to do it, that
Yeah.
it's almost like a fight with them, but it is. I think
Yeah.
listening to their intuition is the number one thing they need. If you know something feels right, listen to yourself and research it. is there
Totally.
is there something you want to say as we come to a close here? Is there something you want to put out there? Is there something you want to recommend to the people that will be watching this?
Yeah, I think I always say there are risks with every decision you make as a parent. There's risks with every single one. And if you allow these decisions, every one of them, to make you anxious, then you're going to be exhausted. And being a parent is already exhausting. You're trying to keep a child alive, like that's exhausting, right? And so don't add extra burden on yourself by allowing these decisions to hold emotional weight on you. And something, even though it is scary, what my advice is to people is just to take the emotion out of it, mentally, and make your decisions based on facts and not out of fear. So if you have a provider that is coercing you to be afraid of a disease or an infection, whether no matter how rare it be, or if you have a friend who's telling you vaccines are poison, they're going to kill your kid, that is fear mongering on both sides. You need to look at the actual risks and benefits of each situation, the infection and the vaccine. And I think the majority of the time, I mean, like you said earlier, I'm not anti. People think I'm anti. I'm not anti. I'm pro informed consent. And I think with proper informed consent, I think most people probably wouldn't vaccinate their kids with proper informed consent. But I do recognize that there are unique situations for everybody. And like I said, there are risks with every decision you make. It all just depends on what risks you're willing to take and what you are more comfortable with. Are you more comfortable with the infection or the vaccine? And that is up to you. That's not to be influenced or coerced by your doctor, your provider, or your family, your friends. It's only up to you. And like we've talked about, follow your intuition, follow your gut, because it was given by God for a reason, and don't silence it.
Amen. That's all I can say to that. I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you, Katie, for being on the first episode of Beyond the Job, because this is the first one of many. But thank you for being our our first. Yeah, I guess I will say a first guest. I can't think of something any better right now. But thank you for being our first guest. Thank you for joining us, and for the people that were listening, for all the comments that are there. Thank you for the comments. This is the first of many. You can join us next week, Tuesday, 6:30 Eastern. We will have another guest. I can't say who it is yet. I won't say it, but I will say soon. But on that note, Katie, thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys next Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. Have a good day, guys.
Thanks a lot. See ya.